Yeah, you can share your screen.
That means my screen is visible.
Yes, Lalit.
Okay, awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's been a wonderful event, and thanks for all the organization team. I'm Lalit Rawat. I worked as an Chief Information Security Officer at Canerica, as well as I'm a freelance consultant at Microsoft MVP. I have vast experience working on Microsoft Azure and then security and all of those things. So I worked on AI because AI is also a, it is an integrated services or integrated platform, you can say, because when you talk about the security, it's all the things are integrated, right? So just look that out. And before that, like if you have, if you wanted to connect with me, you can connect with me, you can scan and follow. I'll put it this. But just looked out the scenario. Why do you need, when you're doing an AI POC, what are the things are there? Like think about it. Like, do you guys probably put things in the chat? But do you think like when you build out an agentic AI or you train and model, like do you think how you're going to segregating the data? How you're going to, securing the data? Are you falling in terms of AI landing zone? We don't, right? Generally, things come that they need this agent or a finance agent or IT operation agent. We need to build it out. You just go and build it out without following the best practices, right? And majority of this, and you don't know what kind of the data you're going to train, how you are, securing your model from the jailbreak and all the other stuffs, right? That is there. So you will do a successful POC, but what will happen, right? Later on, when your POC has got success, right? How you can upgrade that particular POC to the production where it is scalable, reliable, cost effective, right? When you do this and your product start failing, because initially you might be doing for the 10% of the workload, 10% of the traffic, but what will happen when you do it for 100%? Let's say you did it for the 10 people. Now you need to onboard a 1 million people. What will happen? How your AI services or any agents will scale at that this one, right? So, like anyone can build the AI POC, but if you looked out in the corporate, the major challenges is how you can securely, effectively, and then responsibly you are going to upgrade at an enterprise level. So this is the every POC story, and I have been, many use cases around it, right? Just give me 1 minute. And in between, if you have any questions, you can, put your questions there. I looked out why this, POC has the same story I have been, hearing from a couple of months, right? When you did it on Friday, that's your demo is ready and you just wanted to sip it, right? What will happen, right? When you wanted to roll out on Monday that 5,000 steps and more than that, you can relate. This is just a number, you can relate with this. But when you just started rolling out, you'll come to know there is a public key, there the public endpoint, APIs keys, they don't have the monitoring and all of those things. And probably when you start scaling it, it's just, crashing your applications, right? You don't do the prompt optimizations. You didn't, implement any of the security things or any other best practices. And and then you started running, and then you see like the AI build recently, if you looked out, it reached to the more than a company IT budget, right? So there are lot of things which is there, and even if you looked out the example of Uber or other companies, right? They have spent their entire budget in just 3 to 4 months, right? So you are doing it, these things, but how you are doing it, that is in most important part, right? So major problem is with when you run the OpenAI services or build out an agentic AI or all of those things, right? Your model will have a lot of public endpoints. You don't, follow the governance, no cost control. I have reviewed many codes, and then they have the keys across .environment files. There won't be any guardrails. Who is responsible for that? There's no monitoring, right? And all of those things. And recently I have heard one story where someone has, shared as, Claude or some, OpenAI model public key or access key into the code, and someone has taken and their usage is really high, right? You have to look out in terms of, you know, what could be the challenges, right? When you do the POC versus you scale it. I'm not saying that all the POCs are going to be successful or whatever it is successful, but are you building those governance, cost control, right? And the monitoring part from the POC, right? You do it in a small scale. I'm not saying that yes, your product will be 100% perfect. It's nothing like because you're doing the POC. So have this mindset, but your guardrails, rules, and everything, will have to set it up there. That is not after the successful POC, you just move to the EOT and then to the productions, and then you're coming up, no, we have missed that. Okay. I have seen many of the applications and couple of years people just you know build it in the local and they are publish it and they are tagging all those things, and then when someone will open it's a local host, something is coming, right? And many of you has the same challenge or the issues. Then why the POCs false, right? So basically all the POCs, you can whatever the POCs you are going to work, right? But what it is expected, what the outcome you needed, right? Majorly, what client does is they'll say a one-liner, they need to, build out an agent for finance, build out an agent to operations, they wanted to automate and all of those things, right? And then you'll have to do an assessment what actually client is needed, right? And once you have that solutions, you started working on this, right? So when you started on this, everything cannot be, when you started building it, you need some of those files or the public endpoints, you put it into the environment and then shared key and all of those things, right? But that is the one part. But we never think whether this solutions which we are going to build that can be scalable, that has to be scalable. Can we do it? Or we need to restructure the whole solutions and then did it, right? And I think I'm not sure how many of you are developer. If you can raise your hand, you can raise your hand or you can put your questions there. One, that's it. How many of you are doing the byte coding? like or agentic AI or anything. Kunal only. Okay, fine. So you looked out, right? When you doing these things, right? Whether you are meeting these things, then the cost optimizes. If you looked out the Azure cost versus the AI cost, if I take an example of 10 years back, I think 2015 and 16, at the same situations of Microsoft Azure services, because people didn't know. They just started creating the services, hundreds of services, and the client has to pay more bills. Same as with your AI. What client really want, what they wanted, no one knows. And then you are just training the model, building the AI agents without optimizing the prompts and all of those things. And I was going through some videos recently, including when you prompt a one liner, a two liner without explaining anything, it also consumes the token. So when you send this, first AI will understand what you're trying to say. And if the model is hallucinate, the token are waste. Okay. So make sure that how you're going to optimize those prompts, and then don't you know go blindly with you know with your product or the prototype or whatsoever. You tell the customer that this is some things which we have a plan. We'll start from the POC and how you're going to scale it. I'm not saying that your plan should be 100% ready, but at least you'll have these layers in place. And then this is the questions to everyone. Only some memes which I put it. So are you worried about AI will take your jobs? Yes or no? You can raise your hand if it is yes or no. No? Okay. Why not? My boss still can't figure out the printer and how the AI is going to take a job. So basically, AI is just enhancing your productivity, and if you use it into the right way. Even I have also couple of feedback that people are not able to use it, and their consumptions is really high in terms of the tokens and all of those things. But it is like majority of the solutions are going to integrate it, right? And what will be the solutions if you come across of these kind of challenges? What could be the solutions, right? So you'll have to build out an enterprise Azure AI landing zone which follow the certain guidelines in terms of cloud adoptions frameworks, Azure landing zone, Azure AI Foundry plus OpenAI. And if you looked out this particular architecture here, if you looked out this particular architecture, right, you have the connectivities from on premises, right? So you have the connectivity from on premises here, which connects to your gateway, and then you have the proper landing zone here, right? And then it is going to have the pairing, and then the OpenAI model, application gateway, Cosmos, and all. This is just for in smaller applications or added just for the representations. But if we wanted to looked out a real architecture, at that is just a reference architecture. So you looked out, you have the billing counters, billing, Microsoft billing agreement, and you'll have the enrollment department and all of those things. And then you properly set up your identity access management, which connects to your on-premises directory. And then in account sections, you'll have the subscriptions, right? Which connect to tenant root group. And then yeah, and then yes, okay, don't do it. Okay. Then if you look down at other identity, connectivity, subscriptions, and all of those things comes into the place. Okay. Then you have a AI landing zone and then connectivity. Connectivity where basically you'll have all the connectivity related subscriptions, and then you'll have the identity subscriptions and all of those things. So that could be, built out as an enterprise when you have to rolled out for 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 of the people. If you are made in a startup company, I think this is the architecture which you should follow, where you don't need to onboard the bulky applications, right? And those are the things. So whenever you have this, landing your architecture, you'll have the uh, tenant root group, which connects to your platform in the architecture, which I have shown you, right? You'll have identity management and the connectivity subscriptions, and then landing zone, you'll have the real your applications which is there. And sandbox, it's nothing but if you wanted to, roll out your POC into the sandbox for few people, you can do that. But you will also have the governance from the top, from the tenant management group to landing zone, right? And then to all of those things should be there. Any questions so far? If you have any questions, you can put in the chat. Next, how many of you know hub and spoke model? Someone will have to answer. Otherwise, anyone? No. Okay. Kunj says that he don't know. Anyone else? Kunal Patel says knows. So basically, what is hub and spoke model is nothing but we looked out an example of your bus stop or the railway stations, right? Where all the rails will come to the central place, and then the destinations will be decided, or they'll, go to like which will go to Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Chennai, and all of those things. The same way will have this, hub and spoke model where and a one virtual network will play a role of hub, right? And all the other one, two, three, or four virtual networks which will play a role of spoke, right? So how you can say this is the hub, right? And the hub subnet will have a more controlled environment, right? Where you'll have the Azure firewall, the share, VPN, private DNS, application gateway, and all of those things will be a part of your hub, because hub will decide how your traffic has to be routed, who can connect, right? If people are suddenly shut down the railway stations or the airport, you will not be able to enter. And how you can onboard to the flight or how you can onboard to a train, right? So, so these services will help you how you're going to onboard, how you're going to bring your traffic, and then it will connect to the spoke that say, so spokes will connect to hub, and that say that's how your traffic, whether it has to go to on premises, it has to go to connect to the APIs, it has to go to the public and all of those things, right? And then you can have the app subnet, database subnet, or the private endpoint that other services connected to make sure they have the private connectivity. That is simple concept. When you have the hub, and then you'll have the multiple spoke, right? And these spokes will send the network traffic to hub, and then hub will decide how your traffic is going to be routed. Same way, if you wanted to connect your applications, if any traffic comes to an internet, first it will go to hub, and then hub will decide how your traffic has to be routed. Right. So this is just virtual. This is you can say is a virtual concept of hub and spoke, and that's how it works. Okay. So make sure, and this is really, really important because when you create a new virtual networks and all of those things, and you'll have, let's say, 5 or 6 or 7 virtual networks, right? They have their own mechanisms and the traffic that you have to configure. You might have to configure the route table and route the traffic that will go to ABC hub or this particular subnet or the firewall and all of those things, right? If you don't do that, that particular that VNet will route the traffic individually to different places. It has its own mechanism. And then you'll say, no, why this particular VNet or particular spoke is not sending the traffic to hub. So you'll have to make sure that you'll have to configure the route tables and other things. So route will decide that how your traffic will route to through firewall or uh, how you wanted to route the traffic through hub to on premises using express route and all of those things, right? So those routes has to be defined that how you wanted to send the traffic out and how you want your traffic should be in and connect to an applications. Okay, hope that's clear your these things. Then when you are building the landing zone, right? So how you'll do it? If you looked out the POC zone, which has bit cluttered, right? Unmanaged models, icons, and all of those things you'll have. But when you build out a proper landing zone for that, so the landing zone which I've shown you in my earlier slide, as an virtualized version created by AI. Okay. So you'll have the subscription management group which connects to your resource group. So resource group where you have your AI, Foundry, and all of those things. And all the keys or encryptions, you put it into the Azure Key Vault and which connects to your production ready endpoint or the application or open AI services and or app services or how you wanted to configure, and one will monitor and do an analytics, and then how your production zone will looks like, right? If you look down the middle layer and just see the POC zone versus production zone, you'll see this. You can see the clear differences, right? Where you have the auto scaling in place, security in place, governance are in place, and all of those things. But when you do the POC, it is all cluster because you just wanted to prove something. Whether it's just proof of concept which you're trying to build out, and you have to do it either you follow the rules or don't, but you have to deliver, right? But the same things you cannot build out or upgraded and deployed into the production. It's two different things. Okay. Then if how you keep your LLMs healthy, basically it's just a story timeline. Let's say have the crisis, right? And you deploy your POC. What will happen, right? You looked out when the environment has got crashed. So what are the controls you needed? First of all, your prompt controls. How your prompts as you are, either putting into the versioning or optimizing your prompts and all of those things will be the part of this. How you're going to do the CI/CD deployment or MLOps deployment with the lives, with the upgraded features, security scans are there or not, and all of those things you'll have to put it, right? Then how you're going to defining the model life, right? Let's say version 1 versus version 2, version 3 versus version 4, right? So every version, how you're going to roll out, and then have the major challenge in terms of token, right? And the B case will say consumption is 50% high. And I think some few of you have seen the memes when they're, Claude conjunction or Claude tokens is expiring, they're just dancing in the office. Right? That's the same situation. But how do you, make it better, right? So your every logics, your every, prompts or loops will start consuming the tokens. So you'll have to monitor your tokens that how you are, what you did wrong that has it has taken this much of tokens. What did you do right? So you have to think on that part, and then you can, once you have all of those things, you have the optimized dashboards or the monitoring dashboards you can create and make sure your products are AI healthy and stable in the productions. If you talk about insecurity or the networking part, right? So in the security and the networking, you can use couple of services, whereas private endpoint plays a crucial role, right, to your network because you just wanted to allow what is there inside your network. You don't want any public any endpoints to connect or breach anything because you'll have the landing zone and then hub, and then you're sending the traffic over the public endpoint, which is in control environment. But what will happen if you don't have the private endpoint? Still within Microsoft, you will be using that. And if you looked out, hub and spoke represent Ganesha ji, that how you are connecting multiple subnets to hub, and then manage identity where how your system will recognize you. Use a service principle. You use tokens or API stations and whatever it is, right? How you're controlling the authentications and the authorizations is an important part. And if you do fail, your product will be hacked by someone. Then the private DNS zone, which resolves the IP address. If you have the private endpoint, then you would need a private DNS zone to resolve because they'll all have the private ID. Then intra ID integrations. We wanted to integrate and authentications and authorizations into your services, OAuth 2, and all of those things will be a part of it. And then RBAC is role-based access control, where you will give the least privilege to the people, right? Let's say you just wanted to build out something, let's say VM, wanted to create a VM, you have access only just to create the VM, not to delete, modify, or anything, right? So all of those things will be there, right? And then you'll have the data, X filtrations, control, which will basically make sure that how your egress or ingress data going through the firewall and how can, people cannot summon or risk cannot walk into your doors. Okay. All of those things are, really, really powerful. So I'd say when you're building out, you'll have these things in your mind and then start building the right. If you don't start building the right, what will happen? Again, you have to change the whole architecture and everything's there. And if you look down the governance and control, so you have the responsible AI model where they have the policies created, tagging strategies, how you're going to manage your budget, how you have the content safety, responsible AI control, and then compliances report. If you looked out, what are the policies when you're building the product? What are the policies you want to implement? Whether someone, if you're building out a product for finance or AI and other things, or agents and that, let's say, you are going to build out for IT. Do you want your IT product will be, responsible for any financial things? No, right? How you're going to guardrail when someone asks, can you let me know what is the budget for this? That is still related. But if someone else, can you just draw me a picture for X, Y, G, and G? Well, let's do it. What policy you want, right? What are the guardrails you are going to define? Whether people need your product should need an HIPAA compliant, or your product need an SOC 2 compliant. So what are the SOC 2 policies which you're going to put in? All of those things you decide here. Then you have the tagging strategy in terms of whatever the services you are going to do it. You tag each services so you can identify who is the owner of that particular services and what will be the cost center and purpose. It is same like if you go and buy a t-shirts, you'll have the price tag. It gives you the brand, owner name, pricing, and all of those things, right? It is same kind, the same, almost same works in Azure as well. Then you have the budget and cost optimizations. You put how much you're going to spend. That is comes through your monthly budget. Let's say if you're earning $10,000, right, or 10,000 rupees, that's how you're going to, getting budget. And when you get an alarm, same, right? Let's say when you spend 40%, you set in first alarm. When you cross 60%, you set out second alarm. 80% third alarm, right? So you know that where you are spending, where your company is spending the money and how the consumptions are. Content safety is some things where someone is talking nonsense, right? They'll say, hey, can you tell me how it can be beautified? Or probably they wanted to abuse someone or finding out how they can, create a toxic environment or how they can build a poison and biasness, right? And someone has put some, ugly pictures or some things, but which is, really, not good, right? They can do anything. So how you can make sure that people cannot upload anything and everything in your, product? It'll only, say that yes, it is controlled. You are not allowed to upload this kind of these things. That mechanism, that content safety should be there. Then after that, once you have all of those things, you have the AI, what are the controls you needed, what is, you know, design, what your company really wants, right? And then based on your design, you can do this, and then you can have the compliance report in place at the audit time. Otherwise, I have seen 90% of the products are failing in the compliance report and audits. They even don't know what they are going to do. And I was doing, regressive audit on those products in terms of AI and all of those things. 70 to 80% of the product is not even following governance at all. So there are a couple of challenges because you cannot track things, but whether can you upgrade the coding standards? Can you upgrade the policies? Many of you might think Microsoft is giving security to all of those things. It's not Microsoft. It's you have to implement. He'll give you the services, but you have to implement, right? And then the payoff basically you'll have this dimension: networking, identity, cost, governance, operations, and scaling. And what you are missing in the POC and how you're going to put or getting benefited using the AI lending zone. I'll have the private endpoint, how I spoke, entity management, budgeting, and all of those things. Whereas you don't have even knowledge when you are, about the costing, right? And then you do lot of manual works when you're doing the POC and you have the pre-built team, you are discovering the invoices, cost, and all of those things because you even don't know how you are running. You have the shared APIs key, someone is also using, and all of those things will be there, right? And then what you can do on Monday, right? When you looked out your architecture, your product, these are the check marks you have to make sure that you'll do it on your Monday morning. Look out whether your product follows the Azure AI landing zone, have the Azure European services, or how your environment get configured, how you're going to implement, whether you have implemented the governance or compliances, whether you have the CI/CD pipeline created or ML ops or LLM ops for your productions, how you're going to reduce the operations excellence in terms of upgrading to, let's say, if you're in POC stage, so let's say from 10 to 100 and 100 to 1000 and 1000 to 2000, what are the challenges will be there? Looked out. How you're going to optimize the cost? For what purpose you are building the agent? For what purpose you are building the LLM and all of those things? And you can, build those frameworks which can be repeatable, right? So you don't have to build out again and again because that's another task. It took the same effort for this product, right? So you don't have to do the repetitive work. So you have the one framework, and under that particular framework, you'll have the product. So if there are, minor changes are needed that you can do, but you'll have certain standards which has been built out, and then say these are the certain things will follow in POC. These are the certain things which follow in the productions or the EOT. And when we go full fledged with the enterprise AD, these are the things we need to, uh, get through or get this approval, right? So looked out, and this is your Monday motivations. And then probably this could be the last slide. Anyone can build an AI POC, but the real challenge is whether you can build it securely, scalably, responsibly, and cost effectively at enterprise scale. Because client is they're ready to pay, but they are not ready to pay when your product is not ready, not market ready, right? So if you have any questions, another part, right? Or you have any, war stories, you can, tell us. So फिर मिलेंगे चलते चलते, and then probably this is my scan. If you need, you can, connect with me over LinkedIn, or, you can scan and connect with me. If you have any questions, I'm ready to take the questions.
Okay, that's a very wonderful